Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. So glad you've joined us today to stay curious with our executive director of our nonprofit foundation, Gabriel Rothblatt. Hey, Gabriel,
Hey, Mark.
how you doing today?
Excellent. It's a wonderful Monday here in the Space Coast. Looking forward to next week's launch of Axiom 4 next Monday.
That's right. They moved it from Sunday to Monday so we can sell a lot of stuff in our gift shop. Isn't that cool?
Yes.
Because I didn't like that Sunday shot there. Gabriel, of course, is over our foundation, the nonprofit 501c3. Myself, I'm the director of the museum, and we are very grateful to be involved. This is our first 6 months. We're in our seventh month of running this nonprofit, and so grateful that Gabriel's here to do things that need to be done on the foundation side. Of course, we got to say God bless Karen Conklin, who passed away in August and precipitated all these changes. But you've really gotten your feet wet in a lot of things maybe you didn't think you were going to be diving into, but give everybody a little bit of the state of the union of our nonprofit
Uh,
financial side.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, 2024 was an absolutely difficult year, not just for us with the loss of Karen Conklin, but as well as the shift at the state level in cultural grant funding. And we've come out of that very strong. The pace of launches, in continues to increase. We have restored our relationship with the city of Titusville, and our efforts to bring awareness and activity back to Spaceview Park are doing very well. Next This Wednesday, I've got another meeting with the county and the city about our plans to renovate Spaceview Park. We've begun our to sell the ISS monument plaque slate. So if you someone work on the ISS monument, sales for the ISS monument have begun. So we're excited about all these new renovations and additions that we be bringing to Spaceview Park. And if you are coming to Florida or in Florida and want to come to Titusville to see a launch from Kennedy Space Center, Spaceview Park is just a wonderful place to do it. You plenty of parking, plenty of restaurants, beautiful pedestrian downtown, and you can also stop in and visit us, the American Space Museum, and our space memorabilia and gift shop here at American Space Museum.
And so glad that Gabriel's taken a lot of initiative into politics, that we've had nobody that really has wanted to do that, and it's really paying off. We had Mayor Andrew Connor on here uh, a couple of weeks ago, and he got to talk to our board of directors, and that's never happened before in this building. So a lot of good synergy going in the right places, and I'm excited about the Chamber of Commerce is moving right across the street from us here, and with Erin Adkins doing a fabulous job and her team, we can get a little bit closer to them and be more involved ourselves as good city partners. It's important that we also support other nonprofits and other things in there, and we're doing well on that. So. Yes, so a lot of you know that this vehicle is an important one for the museum, one that our board and Gabriel and embrace on here, and like to cajole him to do a few more shows here with me as I'm hitting all the green lights coming back from Cocoa Beach here after our third meeting for Shuttle Fest with Marty Winkle, my co-producers. Can't fail to say hi, Marty, kicking off another episode of Stay Curious. We're almost at 1,300 episodes in 5 years. I think this might be 99 or 98. I'll have to do some ciphering after the show and figure that out. But we're a strange breed that we do this every day, weekday, and we've created a whole space community out there of you all, and we appreciate that. And I want you all to get to know Gabriel as much as you do know me, and we'll talk about that here at the end of the show a little bit. We got a couple little space history items to quickly go through, as we usually do on Stay Curious. Can't let you down to some good space news. And we're going to talk about our weekend as binary stars. I was at the hotel during the Astronaut Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. You went to the gala, and we'll tell you about both of our perspectives on that and end with a little bit of what the heck's going on at NASA and with the Trump administration kicking Jared Isaacman off the team. Gabriel is a very politically active person, and we have a lot of Republicans, we have a lot of Democrats, and a lot of independents that celebrate this show. So we're not going to talk politics, just a perspective of a political person more so than you about what could possibly be going on. So, on a sad note, many of you that are in the space community know that Fred Hayes lost his granddaughter, Dakota Woodall, passed away last Wednesday, and the word got out through Space Hipsters, and not through just Space Hipsters, but they really got the word out to all you space loving people about Fred. Of course, Emily Carney, Space Hipster #1, is on our board of directors here, and Fred has been the supporter of this museum beyond a shadow of a doubt. More than any astronaut, Fred Hayes has raised money and done things for this museum. There's Fred with the beautiful Dakota and Jean Krantz there enjoying a meal. She was his attaché or whatever at a lot of the events that he'd done, particularly in the last 10 years. So, though I never met her, I don't think she came to any of your Grumman things, did she, Marty? But this is a very sad situation, so keep that family in your prayers. Gabriel, your comments, sir, add to ours.
Yeah, never had the chance to meet her, but losses like this are always tragic, and even more so when they are before their time. So, the entire U.S. Space Walk of Fame Foundation and the American Space Museum family sends their condolences to Fred Hayes and his family, the Woodalls as well, and
her mother Angie, a brother Cade. Fred has lost his wife and a son recently, and when I informed our godfather Charlie Mars, who's best friends with Fredo, he said, "Oh my God, he lost his wife and his son, and now," and he said she stayed at his house before up there, and Fred had recently seen him by having a half-hour phone call on Zoom. He does that. He does maybe 10 or 15 of those a week for different people out there. He's just, I think he's like 87 years old, somewhere in there. And I've been privileged to meet him several times thanks to Marty's reunions of the Grumman family that built the lunar module that Fred was the pilot of on Apollo 13 and knew inside and out. He was the expert astronaut on that lunar module. So we did post the Space Hipsters message of where to send donations on our Facebook. Dakota was part of childadvocates.org. Childadvocates.org. Okay. I think I know what that organization's about, but she was involved with foster care in Harris County, Texas. Okay. And so if you want to make a donation, or we have Fred's P.O. box also on our Facebook page that the Space Hipsters had published on that. So sad, gone too young. God bless her and the family there. We keep them in your prayers. And what
Hey, Mark,
yes, Marty.
Fred's 92.
Wow.
Fred is 92.
Oh, he's 92? Whew. Wow. All right. And yes, and he still does a lot of speaking out there. While you're at it, look up Joe Kerwin for me there, Marty, on our research department over there. So can't say enough good words about this man, and his heart is broken, I am sure. And God bless all the family. And like I said, keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Well, a little bit of space history that the first soft lander on the moon landed on this date, I believe in 1966. We didn't know if uh, the surveyor is called, there's his footpad on the moon. We didn't know if there'd be 10 feet of dust it would fly through or not be the surface of the moon be like brittle, uh, peanut brittle and just fall through it. But there's a photo taken to show that we could have something that weighed 700 pounds, I think, on the moon back then. But what's important to us about this, Gabriel, is it was launched from Pad 36 that we celebrate in our Cape Canaveral gallery with a beautiful Atlas Centaur flag that you see the surveyor in the upper left-hand corner. Like Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, I always say, the early space workers had pride in their craft and put their accomplishments on flags and decals, surveyor to the moon, mariner to Mars, pioneer to Venus and Jupiter. You know, something that I know 6 months later, can you believe that we really do what we say we do, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It is, and we're continuing to get better and improve, the museum in here. I to my knowledge, no one has been able to maintain and operate, the original machinery the way that this museum does. There are other components that you might see, maybe still on display at some time or other, but we have succeeded in keeping this legacy alive and still working in a way that no other museum does.
Yeah, thank you. No discredit to the Sands History Museum there, which I can't wait to see the reno on that they've done. Maybe they did plug in that. I'm jealous of their Gemini console there.
Yeah.
Maybe they plugged it in, the lights come on there. But Gabriel said we got a whole room of real space gear that was used. We've had men and women go up to it and say, "This was my machine. I pushed these buttons." And believe you me, they get emotional about it. They really do. John Borline, I'll never forget you in there. So, well, we got our usual group of great people watching today, Marty. These are some of the most intelligent space geeks out there, if you will. Dave Stange, RJ Jubilee said it's time to bridge the space between us. Thank you, RG. It is time. And Gabriel, a lot of people last year particularly consider this a nice social hour. And they can have their own cocktail if they will, like Robert Law. Hello to you up there in Dundee, Scotland. You were saying.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, no, this is it's consistency is very important, and coming up on 1,300 episodes, Stay Curious has proved itself to be consistent. And now we not only include it in descriptions of our program service offerings here at American Space Museum, but people can rely on it. It's comfortable to them. We do it here at the end of the, kind of towards the end of the day. And particularly, for those, in Europe, and maybe into the evening. But it's a great chance to get to know what's happening in space, in astronomy, and particularly in the Space Coast events. So when we do sessions like this as well, it's not just about what happened in history. We talk about that, what's happening now. So wherever you are in the world, you can get a taste of the current events and the local culture here on the Space Coast for whenever you do make your next visit out here to Brevard County.
Thank you, Marty. You got a question from somebody.
Yeah, RG Jubilee and Gary Jarrell is saying audio keeps cutting out. I'm not getting any indication of audio cutting out, but no one else is commenting on that. I think Steve Yoakum said his audio is good.
Okay, let me just reset that there. Thank you, folks, there. We would love any of you to come down here and help us run this. No doubt about that in the sunny Florida here. But we do want to know that. Thank you. Yeah, Gary Gerald's in up there in Georgia. RG Jubilee says, "Hi, Gabriel. Welcome to the team." And boy, we're glad of it for sure. Some condolences to Fred and his family on there, of course. And and Steve Jokums calls us the gem of the Space Coast. So audio's fine in other areas up there. So we're all good about that. Um, uh, the original shows started at 1 o'clock. They may have, all right. And then we felt it was good at the end of the day for me to do my regular job, up to Stay Curious, because it was something that I wanted to take on and put a lot of extra time in, off hours to get it going. And hello to Mitch Rothman. We had a Mitch and Steve and Dave Stange and Dean Babcock, all you shuttle festers would be glad to know we had our third meeting today, like I said there, and things are well on the way there. We've not committed to the date. I just want to throw that out there. We possibly might move that date. One of the reasons being the hotels are the most expensive in February, March, and April here, and we move it to May or June. You might get two hotel days for one. You know what I mean, in there. So they get all they can here in space tourism world. You know that. And Steve Jokums, I got what you sent, and I'm gonna make that. We're gonna have a little something at the end that'll be fun for everybody. So, all right, let's have a happy birthday party. One thing that I love doing is with the astronaut pin there, celebrating happy birthdays to astronauts. I got to personally say happy birthday to L.A. Lopez Allegra, Michael Lopez Allegra,
Oh, wow.
on his birthday. And I should have put a picture of me and him in there today, but there's one on Facebook. And of course, L.A., as he's known as, is supporting Peggy Whiston, his Axiom partner, astronaut that are training the Axiom astronauts. She's going up with 3 rookies. Uh, uh, like you said, a week from today. She was inducted in the Hall of Fame remotely. Mention that here in a few minutes. And I looked at L.A. He's all buff and everything. I said, you going to do a third Axiom space flight? And he said, I hope so. And I said, you look ready to go now, sir. And at 67, Jesus, he looked buff. I think he's 60, maybe he might be 57. I think he's probably 57, and someone will research that for me there. But happy birthday to this guy, Mark Polanski, 69 years old today, born in Port Patterson, New Jersey, June 2nd, 1956, received the nickname Roman as a joke because he shares the last name with film director Roman Polanski, who dropped off the face of the earth about the turn of the century. Not too sure too many people know who he is. Do you?
I do remember who he is, and sadly why he dropped off the face of the earth.
Yes, he was a sick pedophile, I think. Right? Anyway, let's get back to Roman Polanski, pilot and commander. He had 3 space shuttle missions at 42 days in space. I love showing this picture here. All right, LA is 67. I'm like looking at him and go like, dang, that's just a few years older than me. He is buff, man. This is breakfast on the space shuttle, if you didn't know. Breakfast for 6. A tortilla, a sausage, some egg in there. All right, he had breakfast duties on his shuttle mission there. So, and they have clipboards up there. That's one reason why they love the tortillas. And of course, the bread crumbs get everywhere, but it's easy just to, and then he rang the breakfast bell, and everybody came and got it.
Clip your tortilla.
Yep. Shuttles of the month of June, we're going to be talking about what we got. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 beautiful shuttles in the month of June. That Columbia's second flights, or the flight of Columbia there with Mattingly and Hartsfield, yes. That was the 4th shuttle. The C behind it is Columbia. That's what, and CH is Challenger up there. So we'll be having Terry White on here talk about a few of them, and probably the most famous out of that group would be STS-7 with Sally Ride on it, the first female American to go to space, and the arm in the shape of a 7 on the patch there. Jose Hernandez, who is Sid Gutierrez, I want to say. He's committed. He was on STS-40, and he's committed to come to Shuttle Fest. And there's one of the launch photos today of STS-91 was launched, the ninth and final visit to the Mir space station, the seventh time they docked. They would bring back from a 4 or 5 month stay up there. Um, who they bring? Andy Thomas. Andy Thomas is above my head here. 6 went up, 7 came back, and beside Andy Thomas is the late Valery Rumian, one of the most famous of all the Russian cosmonauts. He was actually married to a lady cosmonaut that went up on the shuttle. I want to say Cordova is her name. And through Stay Curious, Gabriel, we had a frequent guest on here, Travis Thompson, good old Triple T. Hope you're doing well if you're watching this. He gave an account, and I substantiated it by several other accounts. Romian took about 4 liters of vodka on the shuttle that were in duffel bags that were tossed in the hatch at the last minute in the White Room, right under Triple T's feet. All right. He said he had to open it up and look what was in there. He saw the clear plastic bags in there like you'd put water in, but real pliable. Zipped them up because he could smell the vodka. And I'm not telling any tales here. When Russian physicians recommended at the end of every shift that the cosmonauts have a shot of vodka to relax their much like you all at happy hour may relax yourselves after a hard day's work. They also, Jerry Linenger, when he went up to the Mir space station for the first time, couldn't believe they were smoking cigarettes up there. So
Yeah. Is it true, Mark, that some of that was found later, and the astronauts called down and they said, after they found the vodka, the alcohol up there, they said, "Houston, we have a solution."
yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, we have a solution. Exactly. Yes. Yeah, there's some adult beverages have their place and time, and certainly saw a lot of astronauts consuming some over the weekend.
Yeah. So let's get into this weekend.
Yeah, wait there. Let me get just through this mission there. That was a real cool one there. Wanted to slide through there. It's always incredible to me that this is the space station attached to the Russian Mir space station. I mean, you underestimate
the shuttle attached to the
shuttle. Yeah, I'm sorry. Shuttle. You underestimate how big the shuttle is, or do you underestimate how small the Mir was? You know. But it was just a tube in there. Wendy Lawrence there with Nick Thomas was on this mission. I've talked to her several times about that. She did 2 trips up there. What was the difference between the first and the second time? About 2 years apart. The place was even more cluttered than the first time. They don't throw away nothing up there. And though they do throw stuff away, it accumulates faster than they could get it in that progress there. So we'll be getting Nick Thomas on to talk about here one of his stories here in the June. But yes, the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, created by the Mercury 7 astronauts. You heard some of the statistics. The outgoing president and CEO, Caroline Shoemaker, her swan song, but she promised me that Caroline wants to have her nonprofit, which is Kids for the World, a Make-A-Wish type of organization, will be involved with our museum. But here's who they inducted in there. Bernard Harris was there. Peggy Whitson wasn't, because she is in quarantine for her launch on Monday. So there's Bernard with his thing. Yes, I stayed around the hotel events. You were at the party. What was all that like, and what was your impression of the event?
Well, it was the sections of it that I went to, because we did divide and conquer through the weekend, and I am sorry I missed Thursday's cocktail challenge, but the induction, the morning induction and the evening gala that I went to were very well put together. The video montages, the personal anecdotes and statements were inspiring. They were engaging. and and you couldn't hardly not bump into an astronaut. There must have been 2 dozen astronauts. They just kept bringing them out and telling their stories, and so it was such a star-studded event. And equally inspiring to being there with those astronauts is the scholars, the young scholars that are the recipients of these scholarships. Their drive, their stories are also just incredible. And so I was very happy to, in the evening, get some time to meet some of them and hear about what drove them, what inspired them, what they've studied, and what they are doing. So many of them are now working with Blue Origin and SpaceX, RTX, and others. So just which is very wowed. And again, as from one nonprofit, administrator, to another, they are I would say, the gold standard, in terms of professionalism. I was looking at their emails and how they ran things, and taking notes. And so just very much appreciate the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, as well as the outgoing CEO, Carolyn Schumacher, who has done so much for both Mark and I and this museum as well. It is in many places, even in nonprofit, you can see people saying, hey, I'm just going to worry about my interest and not yours. But Carolyn and the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation is a rising tide floats all boats partner. And so we are happy to be friends with the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation.
I like that. Rising tide floats all boats. She certainly helped me personally a lot with the autograph session that didn't know what to charge, what to get, how to handle the astronauts. I'm being honest with you. Each Shuttle Fest has taken us to another level of involvement with VIPs, and you've been involved with. We're going to talk about Gabriel's the chairman of the International Space Development Council conference going on here in 3 weeks, and you've dealt with your VIPs, and there's some that are very easy to get along with, and some that are very demanding. And I've dealt with that in the NASCAR world when I was involved with VIPs of NASCAR as a photographer and writer and all that good stuff. But Caroline helps so much, and she's found her love. Her husband was there, her daughters. We just had a great time all weekend. She made me feel welcome to be there at it, and you also. And we hope the new leadership will get us just as well as they have there. And good luck to Jennifer. Hope you ace your interview there with them. So a good friend of ours here that we're pulling for. So but just mega time. Here's they went from under Caroline Gabriel, something $10,000 is the usual scholarship, and they would give out like 10 or 15 a year, and I think they gave out over 30 $10,000 scholarships, and because there were a lot of kids there for sure, and now they've raised it to a $15,000 bar and want to go for more. And the money comes from in-kind donations and things like the cocktail challenge that raised $26,000 at Zarella's Italian pizzeria restaurant there in Cape Canaveral. And Gabriel and I both are, have our eyes on, how'd they do that? These are the events that we hope to brand in our own way, like Shuttle Fest, to create some very significant things to do. They get us, the Scholarship Foundation, and all, just not Carolyn, but the others, know that preserving the history of the American space program is important, and it inspires these next generations of kids there. There was the big group of just the Hall of Fame astronauts in attendance there. I see Scooter in the back, Bob Caban in the middle, Kathy Thornton on the left there. From my standpoint, being there at an event, whether you're participating or very talkative is just as important. Here was the event that the one of the panel discussions they had there on external vehicle EVAs. Joe Tanner was on that, Jerry Ross, um, and Joe Kerwin was the. Oh yeah, Bob Crippen was on there with Norm Thagard. Just wanted to let you know how good Bob Crippen looks at age 87 there, and Norm Thagard not too far behind. Norm's out at the Space Center quite frequently, giving his time up there. And there I am with Joe Kerwin at age 93, Marty. That what you looked up? 93 years old. He was so full of it. Just fun guy to be around. I said, Joe, you are doing the stand-up EVA holding Joe White's feet on the first Skylab mission, and he's got a pole trying to open up the Skylab solar panel. You remember that? He goes, heck yes, he said, heck yes, I remember that. And why don't I get credit for an EVA for that? And I go, well, hadn't really thought about that. Yes, they gave credit to that one group that went up there with the SpaceX as an EVA, an internal EVA. And I go, well, that's a good point there. So he was just awesome. And I told him that Charlie Mars says hello to him there. So, and Julie Payette there with Ellen Runyon, a fabulous supporter of our museum there. She was there. Julie is the new president of the Association of Space Explorers. She was just named Friday. And Julie has gotten to know autograph hounds out there, her 4 visits out there, including Marty, she knows very well, and Bill Whiting. Hi, Bill. Bill's a dual citizen, Canadian and American. She was the governess of the Canadian government for a period of time, reporting to the Queen. And so I said, congratulations on you being president of the ASE, which is the clearinghouse for who is an astronaut and who is not. And I said, I've got one word for you, Julie. Karmanauts. Karmanauts, I said, yes, Marty Winkle came up with Karmanauts as the term to use for suborbital astronauts. They cross the Kármán line at 100 kilometers, 62 miles. And we had about a 20-minute discussion over that because I said, you have an important job, Julie, to separate this. The waters are muddy with who's an astronaut, all right? When we have these suborbital people that want to tout themselves beside you as an astronaut. And she has some personal opinions about that I might share later, but she's embracing that. And she liked the idea of Karmanauts, Marty. And we're going to advocate that. I think it's a beautiful Karmanauts and astronauts. And we love you all. We were there was a couple that had been on 2 rides of the Blue Origin there.
Sharon Hagel and her, we sat with them on the bus. In fact, Sharon is a National Space Society member as well. So I've actually met her before a few times, but we had the pleasure of sitting with them on the bus on the way out of the gala.
Yes, well, interesting there. So, that kind of wraps up what I want to say about it. No, I want to say this about it. This is in no way braggadocious because somebody has to do it. This is how important the American Space Museum and the U.S. Space Walk of Fame Foundation is to the Space Society of Astronauts and VIPs. I'm at the cocktail party where Chris Callie's got his beautiful artwork at the art thing. I'd already talked to Kathy Thornton, 4-time astronaut at the Space Center this week. We have her blue suit in our women's gallery. She knows that. I know her very well. And with a cocktail in her hand, she moseys over to me and Tim Gagnon, the great patch artist there, that we're just talking. And she comes over and she says, Mark, I've got a question for you. And I said, well, okay, Kathy. She goes, I've got a basement full of boxes of my space stuff. What do I do with them? And I'm like, gee, how did I get put in this position? I'm blessed. This is an important part of what we do. Kathy Thornton wants to get rid of her space stuff. We want to go to displays in our museum, some of it, and some of it to you good space loving people out there that will cherish it and display it and share it with other people. And I told her that. I said, number one, what have you given your family? That's been done. I've separated it all. Well, then you need to separate what's been space flown and what is your mirror mission. All right, she was on the first repair mission up there. I said, but what I'm really interested, Kathy, is you told me about a year ago that NASA sent you just in the mail one day a box, and when you opened it up, all of your underwear was in it from space. And she laughed. She laughed. She says, "Yes, I remember that. I do have that box." And I said, "I don't know what we would do with that, but that might be of interest to some people too, in our women's display." So that's what we're all about. That's why Gabriel and I are taking the bull by the horns here at this museum and making sure that our impact is not only locally felt, but also now nationally and internationally felt with Julie. This is Marty's idea, Carmenot's, not mine. If she wants to brand the American Space Museum in there, that's fine. But we are talked about and we are blessed, and this is what I love doing for this museum. And I know Gabriel's drank the water. All right, and you really were you really kind of surprised at how deep it was, the history here?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I mean, 6 months into this role, and a year, and change, with the museum, I'm still, kind of shocked, surprised, and learning so much. I came into this thinking that I was a space geek, and that I knew something about the history of the space program, and walking in here, being in here, speaking with our docents, it humbles you, just how much more there is to know, to experience. And it's a never-ending pleasure and an honor to have a place in that preservation, of our history, and the inspiration of the next generation, to go out and do it.
Yeah, Gabriel said it for me. It's an honor to represent this museum and be entrusted with these artifacts with a bunch of other people smarter than I am, like Chuck Jeffrey, for example, and Ken Havicott, that have been collecting for decades, and just the mentors that I've had along the way, like Mr. Lee Solid, the late Lee Solid, and Bob Seek, and Charlie Mars, and even this guy over here, Marty Winkle, occasionally mentors me, and he is what we're all about. Space workers are national treasures, and we're forever going to harp on that.
And what do you mean, even Marty Winkle?
Huh?
Even
Even.
Marty Winkle.
Yep. Marty, you got something over there?
Yeah, we got some comments. I got one question, but I'm going to do the comments first. Gotta find them now because they keep scrolling. Oh, Cliff Watson is saying non-Carmenot's tourists. So that's an option. And then Steve Holcomb says spaceflight participants. But the one I like the most is RG Jubilee. He says common knots, COMMON.
Oh,
Common knots.
throwing
All right.
throwing a little shade, out there. Tough crowd. So, well, let's go back and
Let me get my question.
yep. Oh yeah.
Let me do the one question before we go, Gabriel. Team Babcock is asking, will the next shuttle fest have a limited capacity again?
Well, probably not. I mean, the hotel's about 300 for capacity, and we're kind of shooting at 200. We have to figure out a budget. We're going to and at our meeting today, I suggested, everyone seemed to agree that 200 is a good marker. In reality, there were some 150 people at the Hyatt Place. There was 17 volunteers. 17 guests, panelists, so there's 34. So, we really did 120, 110 people paid. So there'll be plenty of room for you, though. We'll reserve it early there, and we're gonna, like I said, we're trying to make it never be too expensive. We know it's the Cocoa Beach Hilton, but you don't have to stay there. And we know, I'd like to know how many local people we had. Was it three-quarters of you local, a quarter of you come in? But we'll, we want to make it affordable, yet this is the Space Coast of Florida, and within, 50 miles is anything you want to think of. And we're just, in the backyard of Disney and Universal and all that. So there's plenty to do, and none of those hotels are very cheap in Orlando. And we're going to talk about a fine one, the Rosen Hotel, here in just a minute. So anything else, Marty, as we're doing a nice long program here? I wanted to get up here at the end that we teased. Thank you, Ellen Runyon, again for your help with Shuttlefest. She supplied all the swag bags and had gifts that she gave. She does a wood cutting thing on cutting boards. Julie got one. She appreciated it there. So we want to just segue a little bit about, what the state of affairs is with the Trump administration and NASA. Jared Isaacman has been polled as the NASA's future administrator. The word out on the street for common men like me and women is that Trump didn't like it that he gave money to the Democratic Party. You said that's probably not so. So from a political standpoint, tell me let's open up that screen, those curtains a little bit here for us.
Yeah. Well, I guess let me, drop a disclaimer that what I'm saying is not a reflection of the U.S. Space Walk of Fame Foundation's position or of the National Space Society or other entity other than my own. But from having a degree in political science, having been a candidate, and actually, quite engaged in this conversation from many perspectives, let's zoom out, big picture. Okay, so NASA nonetheless, any of the departments, but NASA particularly should be, a non-political, non-partisan, a branch. Should be something that we all are getting behind, because to politicize our space program is a shot in the foot to our national merit. So let's starting with that disclaimer, whether or not someone gave to a Democrat or a Republican should in no way be a bar to them filling service, right? And so there is, giving to a political candidate is public information, right? So you can go on Open Secrets and other sites right now, and you can look at people's contributions. It's public information. It happens as soon as you give that candidate money and they file that quarterly report. That is public information. So the people that Jared Isaacman has donated to, both Republicans and Democrats, has been public information that has been right up front. And so for an administration to say, oh, we didn't know, or we're just finding out about that now, is blatantly incompetent. And so if that is the truth, we should all be very deeply concerned about, the state of the union. However, we know that is not really what's going on here. So Jared Isaacman, as well as, let's take another step farther out from that, right? So until 2010, Donald Trump gave the majority of his money to Democratic candidates and had for over 20 years. Right? His entire giving history is there. And it wasn't until after 2010 that he started to give a majority to Republicans and less to Democrats. Mind you, Donald Trump gave money to Kamala Harris, right? So, to say that they're not considering Jared Isaacman based on past political contributions is insincere at best. At best, it's insincere. So let's take another step back and look at the big picture of global events and what's going on here. So in this same week, we see a divide, and we see between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and we see Elon Musk stepping out of his government role. And in that same week, we see the Trump's Department of Justice pardoning Boeing for the murders of all those people in the planes that they crashed, right? They admitted to fraud in those cases, and the Department of Justice, in the same week that this happens, right, gives them, a clean bill of health and welcomes them back into the fold.
National Aeronautics and
Yes.
National Aeronautics and Space Administration.
Yeah, right. So, so there's other factors that are happening in here besides that, right? So we knew from the beginning that Jared Isaacman, as well as Donald Trump and many others, had been giving to Democrats and Republicans. That's not what's new here, right? What's new here is a growing divide between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and a closening relationship between Boeing and Donald Trump, and who've always been very favorable to each other. We know this. Donald Trump he flies Boeing planes. He's very committed to the Boeing brand. He just the 747s have been decommissioned. Nobody hardly is still flying 747s, and he just took one from Qatar, right? So that in itself is another show of his friendliness to the Boeing camp, and this, with this growing divide, that all happened in this same week that we see Jared Isaacman being passed up. Which I will also say, as I've already stated in other places, that I think this was a misfire and a shot in the foot to President Trump and the administration. Jared Isaacman is probably would be the best choice for this job. He is one person that actually, if you look at all these appointees, he is the most popular on both sides of the aisle. It's the least political choice that has been put forth for any department, right? This is the least political choice out there. And now we're seeing NASA getting politicized in this unfortunate way. So I'm still happy to say that Jared Isaacman and it will be speaking at the International Space Development Conference coming up in 3 weeks at the Rosen
you want to see
Center.
him, you can come still.
You can come Saturday. You can, day tickets are available. You can do all 4 days of the conference. Meals are add-ons, but please join us, ISDC 2025, Together Beyond, for the International Space Development Conference, the National Space Society's annual gathering for those interested in creating a spacefaring civilization.
I'm excited to attend my first one and be on a panel on Sunday afternoon with Jay Honeycutt. So we're going to do his video, The Brief History of Human Space Flight, on there. And Isaacman's going to be there, and here in just 3 weeks. So I'll bet you're probably going to get some more press coverage that you didn't expect to have.
Well, yeah.
I mean, but it's just, yeah, I'm not a political person. I vote, and I do my research when I vote, and I've voted both sides of the aisle, okay? And you really got to be involved at the local level, like Gabriel wants to be. That's where the real changes are.
Well, I've got some additional thought to share on this,
Yeah.
Mark. So I'm going to say a projection, around this. I am a political person. I say I'm not a partisan person, but I believe in the political process. I support it. I'm going to go vote right now. We got an open election here on the Space Coast. We got a state senator and a state house seat open.
Not the library's open this for.
Yep,
okay.
well, right across the street here. And for anyone out here on the Space Coast, we do have an open election, so make sure you go vote this week. But I would say so. My my belief, coming out of this, where are we going to go next? Everyone has assuming this was the most slam dunk confirmation that we were going to see, and now it's off the table. So what's going to happen next? And I want to be the first to say that I think that President Trump, will nominate our former Congressman, Representative Bill Posey, as the next NASA administrator, because the last NASA administrator was our former Democratic Congressman, Bill Nelson, who actually flew as a payload specialist to space, right? So President
Right before
Biden,
Columbia Challenger,
had made
January
Senator
86.
Bill Nelson a NASA administrator. And I believe that Donald Trump will nominate our former Republican congressman, and my former opponent I ran against in 2014. But I believe that Bill Posey may be our next NASA administrator. Mark my words, here on Stay Curious.
That's why you're watching Stay Curious. Very, very interesting there. Right now, Janet Petro is running NASA with Vanessa Weish, who is the former director of Johnson Space Center. They took the two directors of Kennedy and Johnson Space Center and put them there to be running it. Janet's very experienced, of course, in the transition with Bob Cabana, the great Bob Cabana, director and astronaut, the Kennedy Space Center, transitioning to this incredible business now, that has saved the Space Coast. There ain't no doubt. You've lived here since you're a little boy. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? How the economy, because of these every 3 or 4 day launches of SpaceX, and
especially the north end of the county. So we don't have enough time left in this show, but we need to do a whole show on the North Brevard Economic Development Zone and everything that has done. But particularly for the north end of this county, the return, actually not the return of launches and the birth of the commercial program, that is the driver of industry and new job growth up here.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed this insight here with Gabriel. One thing I do like about Gabriel is I would vote for him, whatever party he's running for. He's when you're around him business wise like I am, he around the table always brings something that usually people aren't thinking about, and it's usually has a humanitarian, a earthling, a we are one type of people back. So thank you, my friend, for sharing those thoughts. You got some good comments on it. We're going to go out here with over the years had created a board to put on. This is 2020.
Right here, that one, Caroline Schumacher. Yeah, ASF, right there.
There you go. Well, someone that we interviewed last year, Marty, that we regret didn't get on here is Steve Jokums. Okay, and if you hold, so Steve, I've told you that bothered me, and he sent me his signature on some clear strips here that I'm going to effort right now. And Steve, I'm going to put you over here. Let me get my glasses on so it's nice and straight. But pardon me. Oh, zoom in. I'm going to put Steve right beneath Lowell Grissom and Winston Scott here. Lowell might not ever see Lowell Grissom here again. Right below you there, Cliff Watson.
Yep.
There you are. Cliff Watson. There's Steve Jokums, Lowell Grissom. We got Bob Castro there, Charlie Walker. There's Carolyn, Daniel DeYoung, you're on there. Chachi, I got to give you a call. Alex Carl, we're going to have Alex Carl in the building, I'll bet later in the week, the ESA Eurocom. There's Chris Kelly there, artist, Julian Leak. So you made the board there. So thank you so much there, Jokums. Right up here there. I might move that over there a little bit. So he's a great guy. You met him at Shuttlefest, and we thank you for your financial as well as spiritual support of us. And so thank you all for watching today. Tomorrow we've got a guest coming on, Ginger Chen. And thanks to Bert Dick for helping me with questions for Ginger. Ginger is doing a very academic look at astronauts' habits and training and how to incorporate that into everyday people training of human beings, good things to know. So you're going to enjoy Ginger Chen tomorrow. And I would expect Alex Carl maybe here Wednesday or Thursday trying to effort
Slight
him.
correction there, but that is Florida Institute of Technology's doctoral candidate, Ginger Chen.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
She's a wonderful, wonderful woman. I've had the pleasure of meeting her. Looking forward to hearing tomorrow's show.
Sent me, I asked for some pictures of her at ASF HOF yesterday. All right, say thanks, Dave Stang. Hey, you say hi to everybody, and we got Elizabeth watching Schneider, Rocket Lady.
Excellent. Yeah, I get to do the rollout.
You
credits.
get the rollout here, the credits.
Well,
here.
thank you, Dave Stangy, RG Jubilee, Steve Jokums, and Lake City Spaceport, Robert Law, Tom Usiak, Rocket Lady Elizabeth, Dean Babcock, Carlton Bailey, Gary Geriel, Mitch Rothman, Cliff Watson, Elena Edikari, and Tom Celentano. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Gabriel. That he gave me something to think about, like I know he did, about what's the smoke screen of any political thing going on. I don't follow it like you do to put that together, but Boeing really needs some help, that's for sure. And that's a whole other interesting story. So can't wait to see Jared Isaacman out there at your International Space Development Conference. If you're a local Florida person, you're offering a discount.
Absolutely. There is a Florida local discount code. We will get it maybe on tomorrow's.
We put it on Facebook last week, and
yeah,
I'll do
good.
it
It's
again.
on Facebook. Yeah. So please check the American Space Museum Facebook page and register for ISDC. And especially if you're Florida local, there are some discount codes for various options out there. So please join us.
It'll be fun, and looking forward to that. So looking forward to tomorrow with Florida Institute of Technology, soon to be Dr. Ginger Chen, and she's going it's going to be interesting. Let me just put it that way. And thank you all for kicking off your week with Stay Curious. Until next time, I'm Marquette saying, I can't wait to see you in our museum. Neither can Gabriel, to bridge the space between us.